Noon on Saturday, South Carolina Gamecocks are headed to Death Valley to face off against the Clemson Tigers. Clemson is a 3-point favorite at home, over under set at 49.5. This is going to be a big game. Look, Clemson is 8-2 in the last 10 in this Carolina, SEC versus ACC rivalry matchup. But the 2024 version of this thing is as big as I can ever remember. And y'all let me know in the comment section, when is the last time this game has meant so much? Because for the life of me, I can't remember. I really can't remember. And this is the best version, I think, of South Carolina that we've seen in a while. I think this is the best version of Clemson that we've seen in the last 3 years, maybe. So I think that this is a really high-end matchup for this series. As I said, Clemson has won 8 of the last 10 here, but South Carolina has been pretty good at covering the spread. 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 road games this season. South Carolina is 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games overall. And so I think this is one of those situations where you caught a team like South Carolina who's gaining momentum as the season goes on. They're playing with confidence right now, in which I haven't seen South Carolina play with, maybe since the heyday of the Spurrier era, possibly. This team's got some swagger, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Lenora Sellers has really kind of grown into his shoes throughout the season, and that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see out of a young quarterback. You want to see a guy. He obviously didn't bring a ton of experience to the table. He's a young fella, but as the season went on, he looks more and more experienced. Like he's not only going through the motions, but he's actually learning something. And as a fan, I see these guys come in, these highly rated guys, and not all of them work out. And you don't see the progress, and sometimes you see regression. But Lenoris, I think, has got something that he can kind of carry into next season. But let's don't worry about next season, Mason, because there's still a chance, and it's an outside chance. Other things need to happen still. But there's a chance that South Carolina can still make the college football playoff. And there's more than one avenue for the Clemson Tigers to make the college football playoff. But for either team, you need to win this game. You need to win this game right here. But Clemson still has a chance to possibly win an ACC championship with the help of other contenders there in the ACC. So, with all that being said, very, very big time matchup here. Let's look at some of the stats. We'll add those to the screen. South Carolina this season, the defense has been really, really good, and it has all started with that defensive line. You can see kind of down here towards the bottom half. Those are the defensive rankings. Total yards allowed per game, 13th in the country. Total rush yards allowed per game, 12th in the country, and been pretty decent against the pass as well. 18.18 points per game. That's 14th in the country. So really stout defense here for South Carolina. And I think that's one of the biggest keys to victory here. How is this Clemson offensive line going to hold up? And it's not really just a Clemson question. It's a question for any team that matches up with South Carolina right now. How is your offensive line going to hold up against this defensive line? And it begs the question for me as well. For Clemson, is Phil Maffa healthy enough to be able to get your running attack to where it needs to be in this series? The person who wins this game, the team that wins this game, is typically the team that runs the ball better throughout this series history. And honestly, you can look at a lot of rivalry games, and that's the case for a stunningly large amount of them. But is Clemson going to be able to run the football enough to be able to run their offense? If you can't run the football with Maffa, a lot of other stuff just doesn't really work, because Cade Klubnik, in my opinion, although and let me give Cade his flowers, he's gotten better. There's no doubt about it. I can see it with my own eyes. I can see it on the stat sheet. He's gotten better. And one of the things he's gotten better about is protecting the football and understanding what he's trying to do down in and down out for the team. Um, but he's not a guy that you're going to be able to just put the game on his shoulders and say, "Go win it for us." I don't think he's that guy. Now, some people may argue that, he literally won a game for him not long ago with a 55-yard touchdown run at the end of it, right? So that doesn't always, he's been a gamer this year. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to disrespect Cade Klubnik because I don't think he deserves it. But I'm questioning this offense of Clemson against this defense of South Carolina. And furthermore, I've talked about Lenora Sellers and the surging offense for South Carolina. Rocket Sanders, that the group of wide receivers that's kind of seemingly emerged out of nowhere. Simon being a person that comes to mind, but among others. How is this Clemson defense going to hold in there against those guys? Because we've seen Clemson give up some points at certain times throughout the season, and sometimes it's been backups and things like that. Yeah, I get that, but I don't know how deep this Clemson defense is. I really like the defensive line starters, but I just don't know that the defensive coordinator has gotten the most out of the group that he's got there in Clemson. And maybe that's something to talk about going into the offseason kind of after this game. But I feel like Clemson hasn't gotten the most out of that group because you got some serious NFL talent there, no doubt about it. Um, what are your thoughts on this game, Mason? I think I've kind of given my spill on each, all four corners of this game, special teams excluded, I guess. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of piggybacking off of what you were just talking about with Clemson's defense. I think if they can find a way to keep their starters on the field the entire time, I think that there's a chance that they could stop the South Carolina offense. Which saying that a team can stop the South Carolina offense wouldn't seem like a very strong statement. Probably what 5 weeks ago. I guess before the Texas A&M game, because when you look at the Oklahoma game for South Carolina, where they went to Norman, won that game 35-9, but 14 of those points came from the defense, so it wasn't like a strong offense. But you're absolutely right. This South Carolina offense has been surging as of late, and on the flip side, Clemson's offense has kind of deteriorated. I mean, we saw, after the Georgia game, we had questions, right? They scored 3 points in that game, going up against a good defense, no doubt. But we were continuing to have questions about the Clemson offense, who was so bad last year in Garrett Riley's first year as offensive coordinator. Everybody was questioning that hire, rightfully so. But then they started picking things up. Scored 66 points against App State. Nobody heard it. Nobody saw that. Come to find out, App State's defense is not very good. Scored 59 points against NC State. Well, as we know, NC State's defense is not very good. 40 against Stanford. Only 29 against Florida State. 49 against Wake Forest. 48 against Virginia. And then since that point, they haven't been able to get over 24 points to a Power 4 team. So this is a tale of two offenses that are going in different directions. South Carolina is getting better as the season goes on. Clemson has really, I mean, you could argue Clemson's offense has never really been good, because in the games that they've scored over 30 points against, those teams don't have a defense. And you didn't even score 30 against Florida State, and they're one of the worst teams in the country, period. So when I'm looking at this game, if Clemson has a chance to win it, I'm not looking at their offense. I'm not looking at the offense and saying, what are you going to do against the South Carolina defense? Look, Clemson, they're not a pass-first team. They're not going to win this game through the air. They're not going to win it in a shootout. If Clemson's going to win this game, it's going to come to the defensive side of the football. So they need, and their backups have been terrible all year long. I'm curious to know if Woodaz is going to play in this game. I think he's been hurt, I know he's been hurt, but I think that there's a chance he doesn't play in this game potentially. Insert a freshman in Sammy Brown, who is extremely talented, but not quite on the level of Wade Woodaz, who really came on this year for that Tigers defense. But if you're already down a player there, and then you're going to have to rotate in at some point in this football game, can you continue to get stops? We've seen this time and time again where the backups come in for Clemson and they give up like 20 points in a quarter or something like that. They haven't been good. So in those opportunities, how does South Carolina take advantage of the second string defense? And then on the flip side, how does Clemson sustain their level of consistency on defense going up against South Carolina? That's my biggest question, and I'll go ahead and give you my picks on this game, Mark. First of all, I like the under play here at 49 points. I think that this game is going to be very defensive led. I mentioned the struggles that Clemson's had on offense. I think that you could see a pretty strong defensive game plan by Clemson that kind of sputters the South Carolina offense just a little bit. But I like Clemson to score under 20 points in this game. So if you're telling me that they're going to score 17 to 20, I think that South Carolina will struggle to get to 30. So for that, I like the under 49 play here. And then I'm also taking South Carolina plus the points, and I'm actually taking South Carolina on the money line as well. I really feel like the wrong team is favored in this football game. And I know this game is being played at Clemson, but when I saw the line, I thought that this was a mistake because, and maybe I'm wrong. There's obviously a chance Clemson wins this football game, but I think that South Carolina is one of the best teams in the country right now in the way that they've played here recently. And when I say one of the best, I don't mean top 5, but I do think that they are playing at a top 12 level and deserve, from the way that they're playing, they deserve to be in the college football playoff, but not necessarily, because of their record, because they have 3 losses with losses to Ole Miss and Alabama. I don't see them leapfrogging either of those teams, even with a win against Clemson. I think that could be very difficult. But to me, South Carolina is one of those teams that I want to see in the playoffs. If there's at all a possibility, I would love to see it happen for the Gamecocks. I think they're a scary team for the playoffs if we do in fact get to see that. I'm kind of fading Clemson here. I think this is I don't want to say a comeback to reality sort of game for Clemson. I don't think that they ever really got that high necessarily. But I don't like them favored in this spot. And in a rivalry game, I think that Shane Beamer is going to have the Gamecocks fired up. He's been a coach that's been really effective at rallying the troops and getting his team fired up for these games. I think they'll be ready to go in this one, and I like South Carolina by about 9 points in this one, I think.
It would be a huge, huge victory and a huge year, obviously, for Shane Beamer and company there for the Gamecocks. And I think it was just in the nick of time as things were starting to get a little restless at the beginning of the season. And everybody shut up real quick. Everybody's on board now with Dow Loggins and the whole kit and caboodle there. So, I think that South Carolina's got a big edge in this game, Mason. And when you got to go on the road, a really good defense and a really good defensive line comes in handy. And in a year where we've said no over and over on this show that it is the year of the defensive line, I'm going to continue to bet on that fact. And I like the underdog here in the rivalry matchup. South Carolina's a good football team. They're just flat out a good football team right now. And I think that the Gamecocks are going to be able to take care of Clemson. Give me the plus the points there. As far as the over under goes in this game, I think over is certainly the play. I don't see. I think that line is way too low. Just to be honest with you, I think that I do think that Clemson will figure out a way to probably score some points early, and I think South Carolina makes adjustments. But I think this South Carolina offense will surprise some people this weekend, and I think they're going to be able to move the football both on the ground and through the air. I think it'll be a bit of an offensive showcase for them. So give me the Gamecocks. Let us know in the comments section, what is your prediction for this one? Thank you so much for watching. I certainly do appreciate it.